problem from the test. Okay? So parents, I apologize, or maybe, Lenny, did you tell the parents we'd be doing geometry tonight and they should?
No, you didn't tell me.
Oh, sorry, okay. So this will take you back a little bit, okay? So this is an actual problem from the test. And I want you to kind of experience it as a student does and get a sense of what the test asks of you. Okay, so I'll give you just a minute to look at this. Step out of the way. We'll block the view of the other half of the room. Okay, time's up. All right. This might seem a little bit harsh, okay? Parents, though, maybe it's easier for you to just imagine that you're rusty on plane geometry, okay? But imagine the following. Not only are you maybe rusty on that concept, so as a test taker, you arrive at something where you're unfamiliar with the material, but imagine also you're in a room with your peers, and you're on the clock, and the stakes are high, and the clock is ticking, and all of that's operating on you as a student, and you're 15, 16, 17 years old, right? Now, if that were you, and you're really overwhelmed by the problem, which answer choice do you think might look appealing? Let me ask you this. What do you think is the most common wrong answer? E. E is the most popular wrong answer. Why? Think about the psychology behind it. If you're stumped, E kind of lets you off the hook emotionally. It's not that I can't do it. None of us can. Not enough information was provided. Okay? That is wishful thinking. So understanding what a test writer is doing is important. There will never, on a really hard problem, be an easy throwaway answer like that that's correct. Did anybody notice, students, did you notice what question you were on? Number 50. If this were an ACT, that's 50 out of 60 questions. Okay? What does that tell you about this problem? By design, it is statistically difficult. It was engineered to be a problem that most people would get wrong. If you were sitting there, and to you it looks very simple, oh, it's obviously E, everyone would guess E, you got it wrong, okay? So that's a useful thought on tests, is to think, where am I on the test? How hard should this problem feel? And if what I'm doing is not very hard, seems very obvious, then they just got me. Okay, so these are some things to think about. We would want you as a student to dig in and go further. Okay, so don't trust E, cross out E. Here's the next thing you should do. And parents, this is something that you can do to check. Students, I'm sorry if I'm going to call you out here. If you, parents, look at your student's PSAT or practice test booklet, and you see no writing in it at all, that's bad. Okay? Not a test you want to do in your head. You want to put pencil to paper, draw what's being described, and see where you go. Okay, on this problem, if you try to draw it, if you see some of you discussing it, for a lot of students, this would be the first thing they would think of. So 2 parallel lines, and a third line cutting through them. Sorry, 2 other lines cutting through them. If you drew this, how many points of intersection does that give you? 5. This is a great start, and you just want students to start somewhere. Get going on the problem, okay? Does it feel like that should be enough on a really hard question, though? No. Most people would think of this fairly quickly if they try it. So I now know that 5 is a possible answer, and that rules out A and E, so that's useful. But I'm skeptical of 5 as the final answer. This doesn't feel right for a number 50. So I'm going to try to do more. Okay? Does anybody see how 4 could work as an answer? Okay? Here's the problem. 4 is wrong, but if you liked 4, don't feel bad. 4, think about the psychology here. 4 is the most common wrong answer of the highest scoring group of students. What's happening to them? They're taking the test. They're already in some advanced math. This is boring to them. This is beneath them. They had geometry a long time ago. Okay? They're rushing. They make a careless error. There's one word in this problem that rules out 4 as a possible answer. Does anyone see what that is? Very good. The word exactly. As worded, the problem says exactly 2 lines are parallel. Exactly means 2 and only 2. what would you have to draw to get 4 points of intersection? Basically a box, or like a rectangle. And that would break that little fussy rule that was snuck in there. Okay? If you're writing tests for a living, which I've done, it's easy to write a problem that conforms to the specs of the test and provide the right answer, but you will labor for hours over creating 4 wrong answers that give you the statistics you need for that problem. And if you need a hard problem here, one way to create a hard problem is to have really nasty answer choices. So a student needs to have her eyes wide open and understand I'm on a hard problem, I gotta be very, very meticulous here. That's part of the test-taking skill behind high scores. If you keep trying different things with the diagram, try something different, mess around with it, that's still 5, but that's a way that you could get 3 points of intersection. So the final answer, C, 3 and 5. That's considered a hard problem. You know, looking back on it, maybe nothing there seems too terribly difficult from a math perspective, but there's lots of places to take a wrong step. Okay? This is some of what these tests ask of students. Now, I have a hard time defending this pedagogically. College Board might say, well, this is getting at, or ACT might say, this is getting at spatial reasoning skills, it's geometry you should know. How many of you got through college without doing plane geometry and parallel lines, right? But it's a hoop students must jump through. So it kind of all begs the question, what does a test score say about a student? What does it say about you? Part of it is what you know, content knowledge. And College Board and ACT would like to say that it's all about, what you know, what you've studied. It's certainly part of it. If you come to a test prep class and you've forgotten all of geometry, that's going to be tough. You have to review that on your own and relearn. Okay? Test prep companies and tutors act like it's all about just the tricks and the strategies. If you take our class or hire us to be your tutor, we give you the best tricks and off you go, your score goes up really easily, it's easy. Okay? That's not true either. Yes, there are methods. There's a strategy for every type of question you will encounter on the test, and for every scenario. And learning those, which one to use when, how to use them quickly and accurately is part of increasing your score. But the tricks alone won't raise your score as much as you'd like it to increase, and they're just part of it. I will tell you too, the strategies are not really differentiators in the test prep world. The library of approaches that work that's pretty well known. It's how well you learn them. Okay? The next part, for me, it's really important, is time management. This is what I've just been talking about with the heat map, okay, and the squiggly lines. For you, you need to find the perfect timing approach. And making sure that every second you spend is exactly as it should be, exactly where you should be spending it. Finally, there's very much an emotional component to this. How many of you felt your blood pressure rise just a tiny bit being asked to do math in a room with your peers? Okay? It's a real thing, all right? And you're healthy, well-adjusted adults many years beyond this, okay? So getting that anxiety under control is part of helping students do their best. And the simplest way to defeat anxiety, at least to get it to a manageable level, would be practice tests. Becoming just utterly familiar with what the test looks and feels like, knowing what's coming, having a basic plan for anything that you'll see. This is step 1 to doing your best on the test. These things also go together. I'll give you a scenario. We work with a lot of students who are really hardworking, take this very seriously. They're hard on themselves. Okay? Tell me if this sounds like you or like your son or daughter. You're taking a test, you get to a hard problem, and you pretty quickly figure it out that it's either C or D. But now you're stuck. And you know you're stuck. Like this problem, this is one that it's got me. I'm not going to figure this out. So then what do? Do you either A, decisively accept that, pick an answer, put it out of your mind and move on quickly? Or do you sit there and stare at it for 90 seconds frustrated until finally you, all right, guess and move on, and it's still in the back of your mind bothering you? And then you do that 4 or 5 more times on other problems that stump you, okay? If you're the latter student, you're hurting yourself a lot, okay? That's not the right mindset. So the students are doing their best, become just machines in how they deal with this test. They know what's coming, they know what they can and can't do, they're very self-aware about their own abilities. They know when more time bearing down would be worthwhile and when it's not. And again, this routine, this mindset comes from practice, okay? Have I been a broken record about practice tests? Good, I want to be, okay? They're important. All right, let's move on finally to some of these other questions about testing policies and what you do. Okay, there are a lot of questions that have lists of schools that do or don't have a particular policy. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of these ideas with the sampling of colleges, about 50. So here on screen, mostly colleges you've probably heard of. A lot of them are very selective, hard to get into places, not all of them, but most of them. And I'm going to go through several different testing questions and use these as a sample. So first, who has heard of the test optional movement? Lenny, I'm glad you. All right. There are an increasing number of colleges in this country that do not even require the SAT or ACT at all to be considered for admission. A large number, over 1,000. Okay? So depending on the denominator, that's somewhere between about 1/3 and 20% of colleges do not even require these tests. Some of them are also quite competitive. So what these colleges are doing is this is part of a social justice movement. They are saying, we don't like how these tests are unfair to students who can't get access to sophisticated help for them. And they know what I know, that the tests are correlated with family income. And they want to attract more applications from students from underrepresented backgrounds. So they are saying in a very public way, you can apply here and your application will be considered on everything but test scores. If you want to hold them back, you are welcome to do that. Okay? So that list is a list to consider. If you feel like, in your application, test scores just will never reflect your strengths as well as everything else, take an especially close look at the schools that don't even require them in the first place. And there's a partial list in our handout and a complete list online. Okay? Within this group of 50, let me give you some context. The colleges in green are test optional, do not require tests at all. These are 50 of the most competitive colleges in the country, and a bunch of these don't require tests. So think as you get into the broader world of colleges, how many that don't. Okay? Lest you get up and walk out because tests apparently don't matter anymore, here's the rest of the picture. This group is a quirky group. These are the colleges that are test flexible. Okay? They require a test, but it doesn't have to be the SAT or ACT. It could be subject tests, APs, IBs, even others on the menu. Okay? So they are trying, again, it's about flexibility, and it's about attracting diversity, giving more students different ways of showing a strength with the test. But they do require something. Okay? All these colleges in red have to have an SAT or ACT score, or you won't even be considered. You have to. And the additional bit of bad news is even amongst the test optional colleges, some of them don't offer as much merit aid for students who don't submit scores. Okay? But I can't say strongly enough, look closely at this list. As you get further into year one and your college list starts to shape up, really good to have some of these schools on your list. Okay, next question. You may have noticed earlier that these tests have an optional essay attached to the end of them. SAT and ACT at the end, an optional essay on a topic not given in advance that you write by hand. And it's graded by human beings. Okay? Do you need to take it? Probably not. Okay? Here's some perspective. Within this list, all the ones in green do not care about the essay. Not a factor. Okay? For reasons I won't bore you with, but in the book we explain carefully what's really problematic about this essay, using it as a requirement. These three schools, quote unquote, recommend it, which drives me crazy. If you're Stanford, just come out and say what you expect. If you recommend it, everyone's going to assume I better. Okay, but technically, those just recommend it. And then out of California, the UCs require the essay. So that means most of our students out there take it anyway. This one for me is a tough call. If you're a year one student right now, I would still say the safe bet is to take it just in case you need it. It checks a box. Okay? But the chances are, if you didn't take it, it wouldn't matter. Okay? For 10th and 9th graders, keep an eye on this topic, and I'm hopeful it will go away entirely soon enough, and then it's a non-issue. Okay? So, do you need it or not? Probably not, but maybe better safe than sorry. Just go ahead and include it. Okay? Next question.
Just to be clear, the March test offered through New York City schools does not have the essay. So you want to repeat that, yeah. But it still needs to be, they need to take it. They all need to come.
Yes, the school day test here on, I think it's March 27th, okay, does not include the essay. The district does not pay for it because they know colleges don't care about it, okay? However, the test itself, be here that day. That's a really good opportunity to take the test and get it done, Okay. Here's the next question. You take the test maybe multiple times. So when you apply to colleges, you have multiple scores from different dates. Do you have to send all of those scores to colleges? The answer, like a lot of things, is it depends. Right? At these schools in green, you can exercise what is called score choice, where you can hold back a test date if you don't like it. Right? So score choice is allowed at these schools in green. By the way, in our handout, there's a detailed list of all of these. Okay? These schools in light green, they advise against score choice, but with no teeth to the recommendation. So it's up to you. You can still use score choice. So any shade of green, you control your scores. You don't have to send all of them. Okay? But there are some exceptions. These colleges in yellow or orangish partially restrict score choice. So a common policy for them is to say, you choose either SAT or ACT, but then you must send us all of those. So they partially restrict score choice. Last but not least, Georgetown. Georgetown, score choice is forbidden. You must send every test you've taken. And I don't have time to get into why that might be, but just know there are different rules for different schools. You have to do your research. And we've got tools in this handout on our website that spell it out. Okay, what do schools do when you submit multiple test dates? So you submit them a profile of scores. Let's say you sent them 2 ACT scores from 2 dates. And let's say, and this is quite typical, your scores were lopsided. In April, you did your best in math and reading. And then in September, you did your best in English and science. Some colleges practice what we call super score. Well, they will combine your scores from different dates, and this would be your score as far as they are concerned, 28. Okay, great. If you're applying only to those schools, you don't have to do your best on each area on one day. They'll mix and match for you. So who does this and who doesn't? Okay? It is the most common practice. So the green are colleges that do super score for both the SAT and the ACT. You get credit for your best sub-scores across different dates. These are colleges that fairly inexplicably super score the SAT but not the ACT.
Why?
For no good reason.
No good
ACT
reason.
used to advise against super scoring. About 8 years ago, they released a research paper saying, actually, just kidding, haha, colleges, you should super score. But yet many colleges have not caught up to that. Don't know what to say. Okay? Then there are a few that do not super score at all. Okay? But the most common practice is to super score. Why does this matter? Whether you need to retake the test again and what you focus on if you retake it might depend on, does the college super score, or do I have to do my best across the board on one day? Right?